Hello, beloved. It's me, James, and it's time for us to do sacred reading again. If you're new to this, you can watch one of the previous episodes to give more detail about some possible ways you could actually practice sacred reading on your own if you want. But for today, we are taking a look at one single verse from the book of Ruth. Sacred reading really is predicated on the foundation and understanding that we believe sacred texts can speak to us and perhaps offer us a glimpse right now without going into reading what scholars think about whoever wrote it and when it was written and what it might have meant then. The words themselves can become vehicles for the Spirit to speak into our lives. And it's based on that we do sacred reading together. Now, today I'm going to try something in sacred reading, and that is just to read one verse. Oftentimes I read several verses to you, as many as 4 or 5 at a time, but I want to see what it looks like to read just one verse. Will we find something that we need to hear there? Well, I find that. We are looking at Ruth chapter 2, verse 13. I will take a moment to bring you up to date on what we have read thus far. In the book of Ruth, we begin with a woman, Naomi, and her husband, Elimelech, and their 2 sons. There is a famine in Israel where they live, so they move to Moab. The 2 sons find 2 Moabite wives and get married. The 2 wives are named Orpah and Ruth. Now, tragedy strikes the family, and all the men, Elimelech and the 2 sons, die, leaving Naomi, Orpah, and Ruth as widows. Now, we know widows in today's world, but they're in a different kind of place in this time frame in which this is written. This is one thing just that's helpful to know without doing deep Bible study, and that is none of the women in that time could have owned the access to care for themselves. They couldn't own land, and so they relied on the goodwill of men, of males, like a brother, an uncle, father, getting married again, another husband perhaps, or even a son, someone who has access to the means of life who can provide that for them. And so these 3 women now in Moab, Naomi encourages her daughters-in-law to go back to their homes, to their own people, perhaps find a brother, uncle, cousin, another person to take them into their household and provide for them. And Orpah takes her up on that, but Ruth refuses to leave Naomi and comes back with her to Israel, to the town of Bethlehem. Might be a familiar sounding place to you, the place where we're told Jesus was born. Bethlehem in Hebrew actually means house of bread. Maybe a fitting name, we'll see. Ruth goes out to glean in the fields when the harvest is ready. That's something that was allowed so that folks who could not afford their own fields or to take care of themselves might have access to the grains that are left in the field so they could feed themselves and their families. Boaz, the owner of the field where Ruth goes to glean, tells his workers to not bother her. In fact, calls her aside and offers her, she didn't have to bring her own water, but the water jars that were provided by Boaz and the servants were hers to drink as she saw fit. She's kind of amazed and finds out that the reason he has done that is because he's heard how kindly she is treating her mother-in-law, Naomi. And it's into that we enter into this week's verse, chapter 2, verse 13. Ruth said, "May you find me deserving of your kindness. You have treated me gently uh, and given me solace, even though I am not one of your workers." As I listen to that text, what I hear is Ruth recognizing that Boaz has been kind to her, instructed his workers not to get in her way or bother her in any way, and actually to kind of make sure that she was taken care of. And her words, "May I be found deserving of your kindness," point to something to me. And that something is kindness is something you do, whether oftentimes done for people that may or may not deserve the kindness you offer them. Kindness is something you do from your heart. Ruth hopes that Boaz will see her as deserving of the kindness he's offered her. But kindness is not something you do for only those necessarily who are deserving of that kindness. In fact, sometimes kindness is really an action we take towards someone else who may not be deserving, and who determines who deserves or doesn't deserve kindness. I love the fact that the story is born up on this kind of kindness. Ruth was kind. I know, jumping outside of the message for today, the verse for today, but Ruth was kind because she didn't want her mother-in-law to go back to Bethlehem by herself. She wanted to be with her in order to help her and care for her. At least that's the sense I get from the text. So Ruth has already been kind, whether or not it was in her best interest. Quite frankly, for Ruth, it might not have been in her best interest to follow after and be kind to Naomi, going to a strange place in a strange land, and yet she did. Kindness caused her to come and be present with and care for her mother-in-law. And now Boaz is sharing a kindness with Ruth. And kindness is something it would do good for us to see. It would be good for us to see more of that in the world. And one of the ways we can see it, one of the ways I hear that I can see it, is to do kindness, not to measure whether anyone is deserving of it, but simply to be kind and to let that kindness shape my actions, the way I treat other people, just as kindness shaped the way Ruth treated her mother-in-law and the way now Boaz is treating Ruth with kindness. The world would be a better place if there was more kindness shown between us in this world. So that's my thought. I loved that word kindness that arose here, and it really spoke to me about, as tiring as it may be sometimes in this world with all the chaos, that kindness really rules the day. If we can continue to be kind to one another, kind to ourselves, kindness can reshape the way we see each other, the way we are seen in that kindness. So the word to me, go and be kind, James. The word to you, perhaps, the same thing. If you wish, I encourage you to go and read Ruth chapter 2, verse 13 yourself. Read it 3 times aloud. See how it speaks to you. Until the next time we meet together in sacred reading, Remember, you're infinitely precious, unconditionally loved for the gift